And now it is my absolute joy to welcome back Sheila Mayer. Sheila was first blessed by Unity Teachings over 30 years ago. Never say so. And she was blessed with her Unity Teachings both here at Unity Kitchener and in other areas. But this was her home. And so we were so blessed to learn and grow with her too. In 2003, Sheila became a licensed Unity teacher, and she continues to serve by sharing Unity principles and messages through her Sunday talks and through classes. So let's give Sheila a welcome, a warm welcome from Unity Kitchener. Welcome back, Sheila.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And I touched my screen while I was, so best laid plans, right?
Absolutely.
There we go. Okay. So is my screen actually up and can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So welcome to Thanksgiving, my personal favorite time of the year. And Thanksgiving looks a whole lot different this year than it does other years. And for some of us, our harvest bowl may be feeling kind of empty, and for others kind of full. And sometimes it may feel like it's full of stuff we don't really want. And that's what it's full of anyway. So, this is the opportunity to celebrate it. Sawubona. That's the Zulu greeting that is I see you. And this is our heart-to-heart, mind-to-mind, soul-to-soul connection across space and time, that we are coming together to make this moment, this time together, sacred. And if that resonates with you, I invite you just to reply with Yabo Sawubona. I see you seeing me. And this is that connection back and forth. So Unity Worldwide Ministries theme for the year is seeing things through a spiritual lens. And for October, it's really all about nature's beauty being reflected as our true nature. So what does that look like for Thanksgiving? Taking in and integrating in gratefulness. So just embracing it all. I love that little yin-yang symbol with the yin-yang symbols in it as sort of that symbol of the holographic nature of ourselves and the universe in which we live. And that idea of it's all part of the one great whole, light and dark and everything in between. So Thanksgiving, just like Advent or Lent, and I apologize, my eyes will be over on my other screen because I want to read this so I don't ramble. Just like Lent or Advent, autumn harvest is a 40-day spiritual process that we are hardwired to experience consciously or unconsciously. Regardless of whether your participation in fall harvest, it's going to happen anyway. Fall happens anyway. Days get shorter, the annual plants die, the deciduous trees model how to let go with grace. The vegetation is going to rot, and regardless of whether you take it to the compost or not, and regardless of whether you do any preserving yourself or not, that fall harvest is here and it's happening now. And all of it is modeling the metaphor for spiritual growth. Though autumn harvest was a huge religious and secular festival way back in Egyptian times, way back in the Sumerian, Roman, Greek, and indigenous cultures around the world, the holiday we know in Canada isn't so, it's been kind of loose, right? And we don't really think of it as being a whole season. We think of Thanksgiving weekend and Halloween at the end of the month, and equinox, well, we acknowledge fall started, but it's not really tied together as a season, and it's not really tied to our spiritual growth and a spiritual process. And like I said, fall drags us through it anyway, regardless, consciously or unconsciously. And if we choose to make it conscious, we can get so much more out of it. Really, as we know it, and the Thanksgiving that we sort of look at today in Canada wasn't established until 1957. Like, that's not even like a generation ago, when Governor General Vincent Massey issued a proclamation declaring, in quotations, "a day of general thanksgiving to Almighty God for the bountiful harvest with which Canada has been blessed, to be observed on the second Monday of October." Prior to that, it sort of happened sometime in the fall, and it changed every year. And while it may have been unconscious, it's certainly no accident that the traditional foods associated with Thanksgiving are all native to the Americas: turkey, cranberry, potato, corn, squash, and pumpkin. How deep we dive into the holy season, the holiday season, and the meaning we give it, it's always our choice, and it's always up to us. We can make it as secular and superficial as we want, or we can make it as deep, rich, and meaningful as we want. So I'd like to share just a few of the potentials with you. First off, we can take a break from counting calories, steps, pounds, and dollars to count blessings. And I really encourage you to do that. If you do nothing else for Thanksgiving, this alone will raise your frequency and uplift you. And, you know, Unity's third principle is, you know, the law of mind action. So the vibration we're putting out is reflecting back at us. So taking that time to count our blessings. And I highly encourage you to journal them. And you go, well, why? Like, what's the point of journaling them? The journaling them is really handy so that when you forget and you hit rock bottom, which we all get our turn at doing, you've got something to look back at and go, oh yeah, things aren't as bleak and empty as I thought. I have, there's more there than I'm aware of in this moment. Because again, the frequency we put out is the one that's going to show up to us. And what we're looking for is what we're going to see. So feeling into that Thanksgiving feeling of celebrating the letting go as well as the harvest. And looking at the big picture, you know, like somebody mentioned the beautiful leaves and the scenery, and it is just so incredible this time of year. And the harvest is, you know, the apples and the tomatoes, and yes, the frost is killing it all off. And at the same time, it is so glorious. So taking this moment to step back and smell the roses and see the beauty, feeling into it again will raise your spirits, will raise your frequency. So a few lessons that I've learned from harvest. Reap your harvest when it's there. And you go, well, that's kind of stating the obvious. And it's like, well, how often are there opportunities that we don't take advantage of? Or go, I'm going to get to that, you know, I'm thinking of the tomatoes, and then they sit and rot on the counter, and you feel really bad as you compost them, and you miss the moment. You know, things like the dishes, washing the dishes, they are the most patient things in the world, and they'll wait forever. But our harvest, a lot of times that doesn't wait. And it doesn't mean that, you know, if we lose it, it's gone forever. There will be harvest again next year. There will be another harvest coming. But the one that's here now is the one that we have opportunity to make use of, to embody and embrace. Reap when it's suitably ripe. I don't know about you, but I can find myself wanting to push the river, wanting to pick things before they're done, take things out of the oven before it's done. And by this, it can be that physical thing, or it can be the metaphoric thing or the metaphysical thing, the wanting to be in a different space spiritually, the wanting my emotions to be in a different space, wanting to be ready for the next step, and the next step's not ready for me. Sometimes it's my turn to wait. And remembering that and breathing into it so that I'm present and aware to notice what's ripe and make use of it when it is. Cut away the bad pieces. You know, like you don't have to throw out the entire apple, you can cut off the bruise. And if you don't cut off the bruise, it will rot the whole apple and it will flavor whatever you're doing. So pretending that the bad spot's not there and ignoring it, it ruins ruins what I'm cooking. if I deal with it, if I process, if I do my shadow work, then I keep the good and I compost the rest. Preserve selectively. I don't have to use every single tomato in the garden. Yes, it's great if I make use of it. Yes, it's great if I can give some away and share my abundance with other people. And it's not the end of the world if some of it gets composted anyway. Nature wastes, in quotations, an awful lot. Every seed does not produce a tree. Every seed does not feed a squirrel. Some of it composts. And nature doesn't, nature, God, divine source, whatever you want, there's no judgment in it. Letting ourselves off the hook for the harvest that we didn't make the most of. If we spend our time regretting what we didn't do, we miss what we could be doing now. And I've caught myself doing that a few times. So I just thought I'd share. Celebrate what we do get done. Celebrate what harvest we do receive. Celebrate the abundance that comes our way. And again, all of this can refer to the physical harvest of the garden, but it can just as easily refer to the projects that we've got going, the things that we're working on learning, our spiritual growth, just all of it, all of life. And compost the leftovers. Don't try to store it. Don't just compost it and clean it off so it doesn't, make a home for slugs the next year to eat holes in what's coming next. Get it turned over and get it composting. And then use it. Once you've gone to the effort of reaping your harvest and you've got all these beautiful jars of whatever, or these wonderful things in the freezer, or this terrific dried stuff, use it. The saving it for later and never getting around to it, the books that are never read, the courses that you've signed up online and haven't done, or whatever, like, go ahead and use them. Rather than, buying jam when you've got homemade jam that you made last year. Just saying. I know how bad it hurts when you throw something out that you found that you made 5 years ago. So, and wring the juice out of the lemons, whatever. That's Edwene Gaines, hands on the hips. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me. And I demand to see the blessing in it. And there is a blessing in it. But also make sure that you reap wring out the juice of the sweet grapes as well. Sometimes we can get into I'm going to learn the lesson here, or, make the lemonade out of the lemons, or however you want to express that. Learn from our mistakes so we don't, because we don't have time to make them all ourselves, all that kind of stuff. We get hung up on that, and we can go cruising right past our successes. Because everything went smoothly. We don't have to worry about that. It's done. Tick next. And if we don't take time to learn the lessons from our successes, we have to do all our learning from our failures. I don't know about you, but I find successes more fun than failures usually. So I'd really rather take the time to, give myself the time out and learn from those successes. And that means taking some literal time out and being with it, sorting out what I learned from it. What do I want to carry forward? So then when we talk about being grateful, living in an attitude of gratitude, there's also a type of full that is not quite so great. Picture this cup that is so like right to the top where another drop and it's going to overfill. And you go, oh yeah, that's full. That's really full. And it's like, well, recognize when you're full, and recognize that when you're that full, there's no room for anything more. And you have the opportunity to expand your cup or pour some out. Perhaps it's about getting curious and questioning. And questioning whether it's time to let go of something, or, like I say, expanding the cup, recognizing when we're full. And this can be a good full, or it could also be a not so good full. The recognizing when, our schedule is full and we can't keep up at the pace that we're trying to maintain. And then going, okay, I need to expand my cup, or, you know, delegate or delete or pour some out in some way to give some headspace, because otherwise we're living on the edge and we're all constantly worried about spilling something, and we can get defensive and we can get judgmental, and we can slow ourselves down and limit ourselves. So finding ways to share and bring it back to a different kind of full. So appreciate is another aspect of Thanksgiving season. And what appreciate actually means is to recognize value or to increase in value. Everybody loves it when your financial portfolio appreciates, right? Okay, well, you know, friendships appreciate the same way. It's all energy, it's all currency, it's all, we know how we feel when we feel appreciated. We grow and expand. And it's up to us to do that for ourselves as well as to share with others. Charles Fillmore said, we increase whatever we praise. And so it's really about that appreciating. And what does that mean collectively? If you don't toot your own horn, don't complain, there's no music. Celebrate yourself and celebrate that which you're a part of. And the more you praise and celebrate your life, the more in your life there is to praise and celebrate. That's a quote from Oprah. So Thanksgiving is just a giant lesson in principle number 3 of growing and celebrating what we love and want in life. So then there's another type of grateful that's wonderful. This is my idea of grateful. And it really focuses on principle number 1, that wholeness, that we are all part of one great big whole. Everybody's familiar with the glass of water that's either half full or half empty. Now, I could have used the harvest bowl. That's the title of the talk. I could have used the harvest bowl, same thing, except it doesn't show up on the screen as well. So we're going to go with the glass. And if we focus on the half empty, we're living from lack and limitation. If we're focused on the water, on the substance, then yes, that's better, because that's living from, you know, the optimistic, the living from have and grow. But it's also limited because we're missing out on the other half. When we recognize that the bottom part, whatever proportion it is the substance that we're experiencing, and the space is the air or the potential is potential, then all of a sudden, grateful is a fullness. We recognize it's all good. It's all God. Even the stuff that doesn't feel good, even the stuff that feels really kind of crappy, we start recognizing as a step towards what feels better. We recognize it as the contrast. Ego's playground is where we're living. Welcome to planet Earth. We wouldn't want it to go totally smoothly. We kind of like the contrast. You're going, well, a little too much contrast. Good for awareness. That makes it really clear what we do want and allows us to grow in that direction. So coming into that great fullness and feeling just the power of knowing our oneness, knowing our wholeness, feeling the gratitude and the thankfulness for it. Equinox, which is when I like to start the whole holy day season, is the beginning of fall. And really, for me, it's all about understanding the polarities and understanding balance. It's that mental shift into fall. And nature doesn't do balance. Often we think of balance as being, you know, something balanced on the point of something else, or, you know, like standing on one foot. If you're balanced, you're in that steady state. And while steady state is one form of balance, that's not the one nature usually works with. The one nature works with is the dynamic balance of polarity. It's, you know, inhale and exhale. It's going with the momentum. It's going from one to the other. If you're standing on a surfboard with your feet wide spaced in a wide stance, you're balanced, but it's constantly shifting from out of balance one way to out of balance the other way, out of balance back and forth. Populations of prey and predators It's not like this many foxes and this many rabbits that stays steady. It's this population gets large and then this population gets large, and back and forth. The seasons, we go from the busyness, doingness, growingness of summer, and we come across that midline of balance into the quieter, into the divine feminine, into the potential, into the darkness, into the beingness of fall. So just feeling into those polarities. And we have the invitation to look at all the polarities in our life, and where we see duality of things fight, of, you know, opposites butting heads with one another. If we look into it, there's usually some sort of polarity in there that's looking to rebalance. And finding where that is and where we fit into it, rich, rich food for spiritual growth. The opportunity just to feel into the inhale and exhale, the tide flowing in and the tide flowing out, giving and receiving, Thanksgiving, wink, wink, wink. The beingness and the doingness, these are all polarities within that beginning of the Holy Day season. So let's look at Thanksgiving. If we take the Thanksgiving and break it into its two words, thanks and giving, we have receive, thanks, and we have give. So we go from in the polarity into the flow of one to the other. When we give thanks, we are opening our space, opening our heart, opening our willingness, opening our mind to receiving. We're creating an empty bowl. We are creating a harvest bowl. And when we give from that space, and it does, and you go, well, if I don't have anything, I can't give anything. You always have something. It's a matter of finding where you can give. And maybe you start by giving thanks. Just a thought. And with that giving then comes back around to the receiving. And give, receive, give, receive, give, receive. It expands and grows and grows and grows. This is what the universe coming into expression is really all about. You can think of the beautiful horn of plenty, or the cornucopia, as being that source, a symbol of the source of all sufficiency, of the divine, of the one power, one presence of the universe. Just drawing and the energy of giving and receiving, of being in flow. The universe is dynamic. It is always in flow. It is always giving and receiving. The sun is giving to us every day, never asking, you know, do you need more? Or you don't deserve it. It just gives because it can. And receiving just because we can. Having that open heart, that open bowl, willing to receive, and having the open heart and open bowl, open mind to give. Jesus modeled it. It was beautifully shared in that song we just sang, you know, with Jesus, the feeding of the 5,000, where there's all these people on the hill listening to Jesus, and there's muttering, you know, we have nothing to feed them. And a little boy comes forward and offers his lunch, which is, you know, a couple of loaves of bread and a few fish. And they're going, well, that's not going to feed everybody, but that's what he offered. That's what he gave. And Jesus received and gave thanks for it and blessed it. And they fed the 5,000 with you know, plenty left over. And it's like, we'll come into another understanding of that in a moment, but just feeling into it. So the horn of plenty is really the creative process. And I sort of think of it, anybody who's into Abraham as channeled through Esther Hicks, and talking of the vortex, that cornucopia is really just that giant vortex. It's celebrating the never-ending supply from source. Life, the activity of God, acting on matter, the substance of God, according to the consciousness, the mind of our God, setting out that intention, setting out the asking, and it is given, that dynamic flow. So now I'd like to share with you the story of stone soup. Once upon a time, a wise old man decided to go on a journey. So he packed a small bag, said goodbye to his wife, and he set off. And he traveled all day without meeting anybody. When it was evening, he came to a small village. I think I'll stop right here for the night, he said to himself. Near the center of the village, he met a group of people. So he introduced himself. I'm a simple traveler, he said, looking for a safe place to sleep and a hot meal. We'd be glad to offer you a place to sleep, the villagers told him, but we have very little food. Our crops failed this year, and we don't have much to share. Most of us are barely getting by. I'm sorry to hear that, the man said, but you needn't worry about feeding me. I already have everything I need. In fact, I was thinking of making some stone soup to share with you all. Stone soup? The villagers asked. What's that? We've never heard of such stone soup. Can't make soup from stones. Oh, it's wonderful, said the old man. Best soup I've ever tasted. If you bring me a soup pot and some water, I'll make some for us. And so the villagers rushed back to their homes, and sure enough, they returned shortly. One was carrying a large pot, and another some wood for a fire, and others brought some water. When the fire was going and the water had begun to boil, the old man took out a small silk pouch, and with great ceremony, he reached in and pulled out a smooth round stone. He blessed it, he held it, and he carefully dropped the stone into the boiling water. The villagers watched eagerly and kind of, suspiciously. The old man began to slowly stir the pot, sniffing the aroma and licking his lips in anticipation. I do love tasty stone soup, he said. Of course, stone soup with cabbage. Now that's something that's really special. I might be able to find a bit of cabbage, one of the villagers said, and off she ran to her house, returning with a small cabbage she had stored away in her pantry. Wonderful, said the old man, as he added the cabbage to the pot. This reminds me of the time I had stone soup with cabbage and a bit of salted beef. It was unbelievably good. After a moment of silence, another villager, the butcher, said, I might know where there's a bit of salted beef. And he left it to his shop and came back with a bit of salted beef that was promptly added to the pot. Can you imagine what this soup would taste like if we had a bit of onion, or perhaps a few potatoes or a carrot or two, or maybe a couple of mushrooms? Oh, this would be a fine meal fit for royalty. And sure enough, before he knew it, the soup pot was full to the brim with vegetables of all kinds, carrots and potatoes, mushrooms, onions, turnips, green beans, beets, celery, all brought by the men and women and the children of the village. Not only that, but the villager baker came with some fresh bread and some butter. And as the soup simmered slowly over the fire, a wonderful aroma began to waft around the villagers. They began to relax and chat. They sing songs and share stories and jokes. When the soup was finally done, the old man ladled it into bowls, and they all shared the delicious meal together. There was more than enough for everyone to eat their fill. Afterwards, they all declared that it was the best soup they'd ever tasted. The mayor of the village quietly pulled the man aside and quietly offered him a great deal of money for the magic stone, but the old man refused to sell it. The next morning, he woke early and packed up his belongings. As he was leaving the village, he passed a group of children playing by the roadside. He handed the youngest the silk pouch containing the stone, and he whispered, "It wasn't the stone that performed the magic. It was all of us together." And that is really the message. It is all about all of us together. A month or so ago, Reverend Greg Coles talked about becoming the bowl, to hold gently all of the pieces as things fall apart. And the systems throughout our culture right now are all falling apart. And when we can create sacred, safe space for one another, celebrating one another, appreciating one another, we create that harvest bowl of opportunity, and we become that stone soup of community for one another. And the version that I read was from the Canadian Food Grains Bank, but it is a traditional tale that has many, many versions. So integrating wholeness, recognize, and I so encourage you, don't stop this season with Thanksgiving. The next stage is to integrate all the darkness into the wholeness. As long as we're shoving something and rejecting something, it's not integrated into the oneness wholeness. So take time to take back the night. When we allow the darkness, when we look into the darkness, when we step into the darkness, when we embrace the darkness, suddenly we can see the stars. The stars is the expanded universe. It's our way of seeing a different perspective. Death, deal with it. Spoiler alert, you're gonna die. Especially in a really super positive community, the tendency is to go, I'm gonna stay positive, I'm not gonna think about death. And the reality is, when we face it, when we address it, when we make friends with it, it actually reinforces life. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. And life is both birth and death. So when we can embrace it, and maybe that means doing up your will or reviewing your will. Maybe that means having the difficult conversation with with parents or with your kids. Whatever that means, just, make friends with death. Hauntings. We all have our fears. We all have our dark shadows. There's all those pieces of us that we aren't too impressed with. And the tendency, again, is to look to the positive and don't deal with it. Well, as long as they're there, you need to deal with them. And if you sawabona them, if you greet them with, I see you, seeing me, seeing you, you are a part of my wholeness, and I'm willing to look at you and work with you and transform you. You go, well, what do they look like? It's like vampires, things that suck the life out of you. Mummies, those wounds that we wrap in bandage to preserve the wound forever, that are just begging for reconciliation. Zombies, those parts of our life that we're going through the motions and aren't really living. Those are just a few of them. Like, just look at your own fears. Look at, what is it you don't want to look at? That's the one to work with. And then standing on strong shoulders, the Day of the Dead. There are so many parts of the world that celebrate the Day of the Dead. And honoring our ancestors, honoring the past. We don't want to stare into the rearview mirror, but a glance is really good. And recognizing the strong shoulders on which we are standing, the people that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So that really is the rest of the season. Thanksgiving is the easy, great, high momentum start. But I encourage you not to sell yourself short by skipping over the other part of it. And find comfort in the oneness and the great fullness. What if you knew that you were okay exactly the way you are and felt confident in your own growth process? What if you knew this was true for everybody else? Thanksgiving, giving thanks, being that safe, sacred bowl to hold it all. And I invite you now to join me in the song, Sacred.
How would I treat myself if I knew I was sacred? How would I love myself if nothing was wrong? I'd be in this moment, enjoying what's inside and sing to the world a glorious song. How would you treat yourself if you knew you were sacred? How would you love yourself if nothing was wrong? You'd be in this moment, enjoying what's inside and sing to the world a glorious song. You'd sing to the world a glorious song.
So I invite you now just to breathe into that open space, that great fullness, where it's all welcome. The one power and the one presence that gives us the courage, that gives us the healing, that gives us whatever resources we need to embrace the things that haunt us, welcome them to the Thanksgiving table, and heal and transform them. I invite you to take this few moments right now, and even set aside a few moments later, just to be present now, right here now, with an open heart, an open harvest bowl, willing to start by giving thanks and willing to receive whatever Spirit has for you in this moment. We take some time now in the silence. Breathing in the bounty of love and joy. Breathing in the beauty and the wonder of life and all that is around us. Giving thanks for it all. And if there's anything that feels like resistance to something, just ask in Spirit. Reveal another way of looking at it. Show me a deeper truth. In celebration for the Thanksgiving of all, for this incredible holy day season. In loving gratitude for one another and the opportunity to be together. Amen and amen.
How would you treat yourself if you knew you were sacred? How would you love yourself if nothing was wrong? You'd be in this moment, enjoying what's inside and sing to the world a glorious song. How would I treat myself if I knew I was sacred? How would I love myself if nothing was wrong? I'd be in this moment, enjoying what's inside and sing to the world a glorious song. I'd sing to the world a glorious song.
Thank you so much, Sheila. What a beautiful, beautiful talk for Thanksgiving.